It's your man Sam and CEO of Viral Hip Hop News, and you're in the building for a very special edition of the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast. We got a special guest in the building. We got the good brother Blaxon, the great, on the podcast. What's good with your family? How you feeling?
Man, how you guys doing? I'm doing well. Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man.
Doing well. Thank you for
Good,
coming
good.
on that this afternoon. Now, you got in contact with my cuz over at the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast, said you had some information that you wanted to deliver to the people. Before we get into all that, man, let the people know, give a little bit of an introduction and a brief description of who you are and the work that you do.
Sure. So I'm Blaxon, aka Kev. I'm a Nipsey Hussle. I like to refer to it as more of a pupil. I just really respect the brother's acumen, and I've been following the principles he set out in the blueprint since about 2014. And when we lost him, it was a major impact. Some things didn't really sit too right with me. So since March 31st, 2019, I've just been researching to try to see if we can't get some answers, shed some light on this case.
Right. Now talk about your I know you have a Instagram page, you have a YouTube channel, anything else that's called Justice for Nipsey. So talk about, the outlets that you have and why you decided to start Justice for Nipsey.
Sure. It felt like a Malcolm X, like my generation's Malcolm X was taking place. And so I wanted to research and get to the bottom of it. And so I started a YouTube channel. It's called Blaxon the Great's Oddcast. It's not a podcast. It's an Oddcast. Right. And then my Instagram is justice_for_Nipsey. So, and that's primarily what I do. I research about what happened to Nip, the case findings, bring the factual circumstances of what's happening. I just try to shed light on this thing. That's 99% of what I do on YouTube. It's just justice for Nip.
Word. Now, are you from the LA County area? Are you from out West Coast? Because I know you said that you've been following Nip since 2014, and obviously during that time he still had a very good, strong head on his shoulder, but he was in that life early on. So are you from that area? Are you from LA?
I'm not from Los Angeles. I am a West Coast baby. I'm from Portland, Oregon.
Okay, cool. So talk about your introduction to Nip, because I remember my first introduction, he was on, I think, the Killer Joint with Drake. That's the first time I heard him and started really getting to know who Nipsey Hussle was as an artist. But you taking us back even further than that, man. So what was your introduction to Nip?
So it's kind of a wild story. I'm a combat veteran as well. I got out of the military in about 2013. And the Halloween following my ETS, or estimated time of separation, I was actually stabbed about 9 times and almost lost my life,
Wow.
I was in a pretty dark place because I always put out good energy, I thought, so I was trying to comprehend like why this had happened to me, and wrestling with my thoughts and beliefs about God. And my uncle seen me going through it, and he gave me mailbox money. I was conscious. I knew who Nip was. Most of us on the West Coast do if you're into hip hop.
Right.
You can't really go nowhere. Like whenever Nip drops on the West Coast, you can't go nowhere. Like you go hear Nip, So he told me, he's like, you gonna listen to this CD, man. And so I did. And it was killer for me. Like you said, it was killer for you. It was killer for me too that did it. But it was killer off of mailbox money. Yeah. So I really just started listening to bro. And through his words, I got to shaking like some of that negativity up off of me. And I got on my own personal marathon, and I felt like bro had a major part of curving, my enthusiasm with life at that point. And so after listening to a few joints, there's a lot of motivational tracks on that mixtape, but I just wanted to thank him, you know what I'm saying, because I was in a bad spot, and that music helped like turn it around for me. I became an oil man after that, started working out in Watford City, North Dakota, doing really well for myself, and that was directly attributed to Nip, and listening to him and laying my brick every day, as he would say. And so I wanted to tell bro, thank you. You know, I wanted to stand next to him and say thank you. And I had that opportunity in 2017. I was actually out in Minnesota at the time, and they had a snowstorm that came through that was one of the worst they had seen in some decades. To the point they said, we catch you out here and we know you left your house after this warning, we take you to jail, you know. So I missed that opportunity, you know what I'm saying? I missed that opportunity to stand next to him and say thank you. I figured I'd catch him on the next one, you know. And unfortunately there was never a next opportunity for me. So I'm like, only way I can say thank you now, you know, is try to shed light on what's going on, you know what I'm saying, with his case happenings.
Yeah.
So,
right. So I think it was March 31st, 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nipsey, you know, we all get the news that Nipsey shot, and then a few minutes later he passes away. Where you at that time? And just take us back to that moment in time. Where you at in life? How you reacted?
I was actually at my brother's house. And I didn't hear or find out about what happened to Nip until about 3:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. We had been tipping back some beers and went upstairs to use the bathroom, take a break from our game of pool. And I was looking at World Star, and that's when I saw it. And then I'll never forget that moment, bro. I hollered out like God movie or something. I saw like, no.
Hey.
I couldn't believe it. I thought it was like April Fool's, you know.
Right.
And from that moment forward, man, I don't know. I never been impacted by the passing of somebody that I didn't know so greatly.
Yeah.
Not ever, you know.
Could definitely relate to that. We were
Yeah.
we were kind of still fairly new. We doing a podcast for about a year now, but still fairly new when that had happened. And obviously when it happened, we started hearing a bunch of different wild things. You know, I mean, stuff coming out of the internet. And at that moment in time, we took it upon ourselves to kind of make sure that we did the kind of reporting that was down the middle, fair, but raw, real, and honest. It's what we were believing in at the time. We interviewed Kenyatta Griggs. We got an opportunity to go out there and pay homage to Nip and pay respects to Nip where he lived and where he eventually fell. And we kind of just took it upon ourselves to make sure that when we did news and we did things regarding the situation, we tried to do it the right way. There's been a lot of things going on about Nip, especially with the internet age. You can pretty much say whatever you want, and we've heard it all. You know what I mean? So I know you took it upon yourself also to start getting into the coverage and getting into the research behind his passing. So talk about that. Talk about your eventual work and getting into the Nipsey Hussle case. We see the case is going on right now, about to conclude. But the things and the events that led up to where we're at right now, we've had some years now. So talk about your information and your research in Nipsey Hussle's passing.
Sure. Well, I started off you know, I was adding to the fuckery pie. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I've transitioned now into an independent investigative journalist, you know, just been tightening it up and trying to get better every day. And salute to you guys as well. Just like you said, man, you guys, you got, respectfully, I say this, but you guys don't know how important the shit that you've done has been towards furthering the justice movement or shining light on things. You know, for TJ Lofton, an unbelievable interview, you know.
Yeah.
So these things, so hats off to you guys. Deserve massive amounts of roses. The cowboy interview that you guys recently did, there's a lot of jewels that came out of that. When it comes to the factual circumstances of this case, there's a lot of issues, but I highlighted a couple key points here that I think are very important. We've been told that the getaway driver, her name is Brianita Nicholson now. And how the official, quote unquote, the official story goes is that Brianita and Eric Holder met each other in February of 2019. TMZ actually did some pretty good coverage, and they have a live from April 2nd, and it's the story is titled Nipsey Hussle murder. The cops cracked down on the suspect. This video is still available on their website. At a minute and 25 seconds in, they have an interesting story about the getaway driver or the woman. And they say that in June of 2018, a car with the same license plate that police shared went to an auto shop less than a block away from where Eric Holder had turned himself in Bellflower, where he was arrested. The receipt for the service that happened to that vehicle, it had Eric Holder's name attached to it and then a phone number. So TMZ called that phone number and a woman answered, claiming that she did not know Eric Holder a year prior, which that doesn't make too much sense here, you know. But she also did confirm to them that she was the one that was driving Eric Holder on that Sunday, March 31st, you know. This is that's one key point that's like we would like some explanations for that, you know. So we kind of go with the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But right now we're talking about the time. So during the grand jury proceedings, we have Carrie Lathan and then we have Herman Douglas. Both testified to things happening to Nip during the 1 o'clock hour versus 3:20 as Los Angeles County states. So I'm trying to get to the truth of it. So what I do is I go to the county records, so like the public records requests. So it's request number 20-967. This is a public records request from National Public Radio, where they ask for a number of different things. And I'll just give you a brief synopsis here. But you get this itinerary of, they call it the factual circumstances of the incident. And it's a couple things, a couple anomalies. That said the date and time of the report was not indicated on the report, nor was the name and age of the victim. And then I'm going to read this to you verbatim.
Okay.
Factual circumstances of the incident. A person reporting stated that a person got shot and that the suspect was still possibly at the location. Then at 16:40, which is 4:40 now, right? 4:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, another caller stated that a suspect had a rag around the neck. It was red, and they had a red shirt or a black shirt on. They were armed with a Glock, and then that person that was reporting, they yelled for an ambulance. This is from the LA City.nextrequest.com. So this is the official place where you go to request these records, you know, and their archive of those that have been backlogged. So that's when you're trying to get some clarity on some things that, and you run into official records like that doesn't help, you know. You caveat that with Carrie Lathan and Herman Douglas also stating that it was the 1 o'clock hour in which something happened. Nipsey doubled down. Herman Douglas doubled down on the 1 o'clock hour in his testimony at trial. So we're like, okay, what's going on with this 1 o'clock hour? So I got an interview with a brother that was on site. His name is Damon Johnson. Damon Johnson is now, excuse me, he's a neighborhood council president, Damon Johnson. So he's an elected official. This brother is constantly with like the Mayor Eric Garcetti. You always see him with Governor Gavin Newsom. The Los Angeles Times, they report on him frequently because he's always in the field advocating on, you know, behalf of our people for whatever the issue is at hand. He's like always out there. And he was an eyewitness to the emergency vehicles showing up on scene that day. And Damon Johnson is also a Marine Corps veteran as well. He's a very reputable brother, you know. He says that he was absolutely positive that things took place during the 1 o'clock hour. He said, I looked at my watch, man, because I seen all these, I seen everything happening starting to unfold. I looked at my watch. It was like 1:10, 1:15. That's what he says. He says, I go over there and checking the whole thing out, and you can see him on pretty much all the footage, immediately that was released. You see Brother Damon Johnson. So for him to be so sure, not only sure, but he took a lot of Facebook videos, you know what I mean, which are time stamped. So this 1 o'clock hour stuff, it's pretty puzzling to us. You know, we would like some explanations. And if this did happen during the 1 o'clock hour, we're like curious how Nipsey tweeted having strong enemies is a blessing at 2:52 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You know, we got a 2-hour gap here. Along with that, everybody knows like LMA's song Boot Up. The woman that wrote that song, her name is Joelle James. So Joelle James had posted a receipt on her Instagram, and the receipt said 13:24 Pacific Standard Time, you know, or 1:24. Nipsey's mentor, Bob Francis, who had attended the Texas Tech versus Gonzaga Elite Eight basketball game with Nip. It's actually Bob Francis's son that was playing, Brand One Francis. He posted a picture of himself inside of the Marathon clothing store at 1:13 Pacific Standard Time. So there's a lot of like mystery around this 1 o'clock hour. You know, there's a couple of the, more couple of the big questions, with the like the larger asterisks next to them. Yeah.
Man.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Oh no, finish your thought, please.
No. There's you guys will just have to stop me. I mean, because I could go. I guess the last thing I'll leave you with that there's another individual. His name is Joshua John Bierga, aka Kid Flashy. He took one of the last photos with Nip. He did an interview with a show that goes by the LA Show. And in this interview, Joshua John Bierga, he says, yeah, I was there. There's this guy, the guy that is an old man there that Nipsey lets him sweep up the plaza. So he mistakes Sloss and Bruce for being Kerry Lathan. He says, yeah, well, that guy, he pulled out a weapon and he fired back at Eric Ronald Holder. Joshua John Bierga, he's an eyewitness. You watch him on the Camera 6 videotape. It's been coined as the TMZ video, but the security camera footage, that's a Camera 6 according to the exhibits. And you watch Joshua John Bierga is right there watching everything. So it's like, whoa. So this witness that wasn't called is saying that there was a secondary a shooter there, and he's pinning Kerry Lathan, confusing his identity for Sloss and Bruce. But he's saying that Kerry Lathan pulled out a firearm and shot back. Like, how to the district attorney John McKinney, like, we would like to know why that witness wasn't called. Why wasn't he taught? He wouldn't have been a hard guy to track down. He ran into some legal problems and he's now residing in Attica Correctional Facility. So, this would have been an easy guy to get a hold of. Like, we're going to need to subpoena him for a testimony,
Right. Now, you said a lot, man. It's a lot to uncover there, but I want to ask you about the the camera angles. How come none of the other stores, in your opinion, like you had a T-Mobile store, I'm thinking there were no other camera angles, but besides the one where he ran past, went into the burger joint and ran past the burger joint. Then they got the one like across the street. So what happened to the other camera angles? Do you know anything about that? And how come
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's what I'm gonna do is what they call it here, back channel. I'm gonna send you guys a link right now.
Okay.
A lot of people miss this for whatever reason. But this is an article. I try to keep it as I try to stay with the Wire, the credible services, and like the .gov websites as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So this information here comes from the Associated Press, and this article is from Andrew Dalton. It came out on April 10th of 2019. The title of it is "Court Papers Confirm a Shooting During the Vigil for the Slain Rapper." So I'm not going to read the whole article, just the key points, though. Los Angeles, 2 women were wounded by gunfire last week as a crowd scattered during a vigil for Nipsey Hussle hours after the rapper was killed. And police are looking for the shooter, according to court papers obtained Wednesday by the Associated Press. So we're going to skip down. Excuse me, fellas. We're going to skip down a couple of paragraphs here. And we'll find out here what happened to those. So it's about the 5th or 6th paragraph down. Police Wednesday said that the women were treated for gunshot wounds and their injuries were not life-threatening. 19 people were injured at the 19 people were injured at the vigil. Most of them were hurt during the stampede. Businesses at the shopping center had declined to give police surveillance video on the night of the vigil, but using the warrant, police took video recorders from the Marathon, a mobile phone store, and a barbershop.
Damn.
So there's our answer right there, as to where that footage went. Officer Scott Swanson was the one that wrote the warrant. And so, it appears from what the Associated Press has reported that the LAPD confiscated the additional camera angles.
Let me ask you this, because we had a lot of different theories that came out, and there was a lot of theories that were being thrown around. But like I said, we try to just be as educated as possible, being in a position we are, looking at it from a neutral point of view.
Yes, sir.
And the LAPD in particular was somebody or some faction that we were like, if there was anything that raised a red flag, it may be them, because of the relationship that they had with Nip and various things that went on. If there were any conspiracy theories that we can hang our hat on, it's maybe that the LAPD had a little more to do with the situation that meets the eye. Now, we see the situation with Eric Holder going on. We've seen the guns. We've seen him running. It looks like a case of cut and dry where this dude was just a fool acting on his own accord. But we can't help but to look at certain things and make us believe there may be more to the story without being ignorant to the actual case. Or, not being ignorant to the actual case. In your opinion, how much, if any, does the LAPD have involvement in this situation?
Well, that's a tough question. So I can't put like a percentage on it, or anything like that, and I try not to speculate too much these days, just as tightening it up from a journalistic standpoint. The only thing I can do is look at and analyze the data. We got to look at these programs that they've had, like the citywide nuisance abatement program. I believe TJ Lofton spoke about that, and Kenyatta spoke about that as well. Now, that program had been launching an attack on that property, not necessarily just Nip, but on that property itself, for the quote unquote the gang activity. In all fairness, they did have a point, it appears, from the footage that we see in the stories, the police reports that have come out. It appears that they did have a point, but this is Los Angeles, and there's a lot of tribal boundaries. Is what I'm saying? It's a very tribal area, and so the infractions that they were utilizing to attack that property, they were really applicable to any property that you go to in Los Angeles. So in that regard, it seems, we can raise an eyebrow to that. Then you have, Operation Laser with the data-driven policing. There's a great piece that came out. It's called Automated Banishment. And they go into a detail of how things like Cal Gangs, which was their database for registering who they thought or who they knew were gang members. There were children as young as 1 year old inside of Cal Gangs. So this is a point that is real important. Nipsey, according to Wes McBride, the creator of Cal Gangs, was very likely inside of that database. You know, he had been stopped like multiple times. Nip talks about that. You know, he was definitely in Cal Gangs, if you ask me. But so Nipsey, as it pertains to the property of 3420 West Slauson Avenue, the owner of that property is actually an entity. It's called Slauson and Crenshaw Ventures LLC. The registered agents or the people that own that company are Samuel Askinam and David Gross, right? So they had it's such a cold game. Nipsey wasn't on this property listed on Slauson and Crenshaw Ventures LLC as an owner due to that that database of Cal Gangs. Because what happens when you're underneath the guise of the citywide nuisance abatement program, at the end of the day, if you continue to get infractions, they can just snatch your property from you. So do not pass go. Don't collect the 200. They just take your property and you just got to deal with that, you know? So anytime that he stepped on his own property, it could have been utilized as an infraction, you know, to go against them using the citywide nuisance abatement program. So that's one reason why he wasn't, you know, listed as a principal owner. But to wrap it up with the LAPD, we just got to look at the data and things like that. And if there's some type of cover up happening here, if there's a conspiracy that's happening here, which if we could just get some answers for these questions, like with time. But if there are no answers, you know, and there is a continued discrepancy, or we find out that in fact this time was not 320, but it was, then you would have to. And there are factions, there are people inside of the LAPD, not the LAPD as a whole, but there would be some corrupt, you know, members inside of it, and they don't have a very clean history for you know, having a clean house all the way, right? You know, a la Rampart and however many other scandals, you know.
Right.
In your opinion, you know, all of your, you know, investigative journalism that you've been doing over the last few years.
Yes, sir.
What do you think happened to Nipsey? What are you pointing to here, if you may?
I'm not sure. I don't know. There's this the amount of looming questions that we have make it hard to hone in on any particular theory. I don't negate the official story that Eric Holder came to the Marathon store and did what he did. I don't negate that at all. I'm just wondering what's up with these time discrepancies, and we have another a large piece that's been missed by the majority of people as well, by no fault of their own. Nipsey had the world's first smart store. This brother's business acumen was incredible, you know. The Marathon clothing store, we have several pieces of footage from that day. The inside of the Marathon clothing store is in complete disarray. There is a beautiful, like, black shelving unit in the back of his store that has been completely ripped out. The ceiling tiles on the back row are all busted out. You have these like wires that are hanging down from the ceiling. Take a look at the floor. The entire floor has been ripped up hastily. You can see the mesh underlay from the snap flooring or tile flooring, whatever kind of flooring you had in there. There's a mesh underlay that goes between the cement and then the flooring itself. This is sticking out in places. The flooring itself, you know, it's like somebody just came and was pushing, just snapping it out. So you get these jagged edges everywhere Anybody that's ever been through or around any type of construction site comes to that black shelving unit. You know, when you snap steel, you know, a lot of times it turns into a bunch of razor blades. You know, you touch that stuff, it'll cut you real easily. And you know, these grade changes on the floor. Now, there's a video that captures the state of the store, and then it captures who was alleged to be Nip in the parking lot. And there's children running around in this store. Um, the best way I can put it for a businessman is that's an insurance liability, a massive insurance liability. So for what we know of Nip, you know, his acumen, the brother that he was, the businessman that he was, it doesn't seem to jive with that he would allow children to be running around the inside of a his store when it's looking like a construction zone, you know, and again a massive insurance liability. So of course, like, what happened to the inside of that store? So there's that question. We contrast that with Kerry Lathan's testimony and the things that he said on record when he did a Vlad interview, and then one with just Big U, and he were talking, and his footsteps as he takes us through the happenings of that day. Kerry says, "I went there to get a shirt. I went inside of the Marathon clothing store that day, and they said they didn't have the shirt I was looking for. They told me Nip's outside. You can go talk to him and ask him when that'll be in." And so I did that. I walked outside and went to talk to Nip, and then everything went all bad. When it comes time for grand jury, and Deputy District Attorney John McKinney is examining his witness, he walks Kerry from ever being inside of the Marathon clothing store that day. He says, "So Kerry, you made a number of statements here, stating that you were inside of the Marathon clothing store, but in fact, you were not inside of the Marathon clothing store that day. Is that correct?" Kerry says, "You know what? Let me read this to you verbatim, so that you guys have it for sure."
Yes, sir.
It's, I made like a slight, a miniature little data point presentation here.
You take your time, bro.
Okay. Pull up this folder and then we'll be good. Hip Hop Uncensored.
Definitely. If you're listening, man, if you're listening on a podcast, no matter where you're listening, make sure you share the video. Make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know how much you're enjoying the content here today. The verdict should be coming in, in a couple of days. So perfect time for this interview.
In the building right now with Blaxon, the great. Go ahead, brother. You ready?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Apologies. You let this joker load up here. So this is from volume 1 of the grand jury transcripts. It's on page 144, line 5. The question from the district attorney. Okay, so I know you previously testified that when you went to the store, it was your intent to go in and buy a shirt. Is that correct? Right. Is that yes? That's correct. But the fact is, you never went into the store to attempt to make a purchase, correct? Kerry says, no. They said he's outside. I said, okay. It feels like a you had one job moment. It's like, well, by Kerry's rebuttal of saying they said he's outside, that would seem to indicate that you're inside talking to some more than one person, which he's alleged to have just shown up with his nephew, Shermy Villanueva, who we a lot of us refer to him as the magic belt buckle guy. He just has one of the most amazing belt buckles of all time. You know, it's incredible. That belt buckle should be right next to JFK's magic bullet in the Smithsonian or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Saved his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did though, because Nip was hit in the right abdomen, and they said that it was that round that wound up transecting his spine. So that belt buckle, you know, really, that's one hell of a belt buckle, you know.
Absolutely. You brought up time a lot. Let's break down the time and the conflicting reports on time. Why is that a very important piece to this situation, and why are the conflicting reports on time so important to this case? And one more thing, if you don't mind answering, is this a case of just error, or do these type of errors typically happen? This is something that they don't mess with because it's that important. Can you talk about that for us?
Sure. Only to the extent that I know. So I had a conversation with a few different a few different people that their career field is law enforcement, you know, and one dispatcher as well. And they said that, you know, clerical errors and things like this, they're gonna happen from time to time. But the general consensus that I got was that when it comes to the date and time of a report, though, this is, you're not really gonna miss that one too often, you know, to have that completely missing from your official records. The time discrepancy, I don't know what that's all about. You know, that's one of the things that drives me crazy. I would like to know. And that there's a large pocket of us who have been following this case and researching, you know, to try to find out what really happened, that have that question too. And we would just like questions from Los Angeles County. We would like answers from Los Angeles County to literally just to clear up the conspiracy theory. You know, we just, I don't know what the discrepancy is in time, what that's all about. I've been trying my ass off to figure it out, you know. And the more that I dig in that rabbit hole, it's like I just turn up more circumstantial evidence that to point to some type of either massive mistake, you know, clerical error, or conspiracy, you know. It's and I try to get away from the conspiracy theory stuff as much as possible, you know.
Yeah, that's a safe way to go, because I mean, anybody can throw out any kind of conspiracy, but when you're trying to do the work you're trying to do, you got to kind of let all that go. But
Yes,
as
sir.
evidence kind of comes your way, it's kind of hard not to confirm that one particular theory, I can imagine. But I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. I wish I had an answer for that. You know what I'm saying? That would help a lot of us gain closure. As it stands with these questions that we have, and this we haven't even touched on the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? But it just, the trial, we thought that was going to help us clear up a lot of the confusion, but it's kind of it's gone the opposite way. You know, it's really gone the opposite way, and that's it's like, come on, man, you know, come on.
Why do you think that Eric Holder killed him? Do you buy the official story that the whole snitch thing happened? There's conflicting sides, because, you know, on one side the defense said it was said in a certain way, and you got Cowboy and the prosecution saying that it wasn't really a contentious conversation. It was kind of like somebody warning somebody. So do you buy that official story, and do you believe that Eric Holder killed him because of that reason?
I have a hard time buying that story. I'm not a street cat myself, you know, but I listen to Nip, you know, posthumously. We heard him on the Big Sean record. Y'all still learning street lessons? And so putting Los Angeles under a microscope the way that I have in the last 3 years, I've been blessed to have, you know, some conversations with them guys. It's like you know, those ones, you know, and they've kind of hit me to some of the game and said that's 101, That's like street cat 101. If this guy is who they say he was, a known shooter, it's pretty. They says it it would be far fetched to imagine that Nip would address him about paperwork. And now we've seen this additional footage that's come out, right? And they say, well, not they say, we see it, that Eric Holder shows up with a blue rag around his neck with his shirt off, and he is alleged to have had a weapon in his pocket at that point in time. So he walks up. Also, they've told us now McKinney and Aaron Jansen, the DA and the public defender, have both alleged that Eric Holder was a former gang member. He was no longer a rolling 60. He was just living his life in Long Beach, is what they tell us. Well, like, are you crazy then? Are you what are you doing over here on Slauson and Crenshaw Avenue with a blue rag around your neck? And you're no longer, I don't know if were you put off of the set, you know what happened with that, but as a former gang member to roll up to the heart of the Rolling 60 Crips, you know, speak to Nip, and for Nip to address him with a blower sticking out of his pocket, you know, about paperwork, and nobody else has a weapon around him. Nip doesn't have a weapon. It's like real hard to fathom, you know what I'm saying, that Nip would make that level of a mistake, you know. Y'all still learning street lessons. It's hard, but again, that's speculation, you know what I'm saying. That's not based in fact. That's just my opinion.
Right.
I don't know. What do you guys think, though? How do you feel about it?
You know, looking at the evidence and staring at the videos and kind of just getting a gauge of it the last couple of years, you want to just believe this dude was a jealous dude. This dude was a hating dude that just seen Nip on a day, and unfortunately we lost a great one because of a jealous ass dude that could have been on something mentally, could have been mad at the girl for being liking Nip, whatever the case may be. A case of jealousy and envy is ultimately what was the demise of the late great Nip. But like you said, we talked to Mr. TJ Lofton, we've talked to Kenyatta Griggs, we've had a conversation with Cowboy recently, and he didn't allude to it, but it just feels like there's more to the story, and we don't want to create more than what it really is. But our guts tell us it's more than just some jealous dude yielding a gun, you know what I mean, and took the brother's life that day. But that's what it seems like we're seeing right now. I don't know what you think of.
I agree, man. You couldn't have put it better. Yeah. I agree 100%. You know what you said. I kind of, my instinct and gut and telling me it's a little bit deeper, because I just can't see somebody, you know, over a conversation like that coming back and trying to kill everybody. I mean, with two guns, I don't know, man. It had to be something a little bit deeper that we're not seeing, or, you know, we haven't heard with this case. There's definitely something deeper, though. I just can't, you know, my heart won't let me just buy that official. Like, he got jealous, he called him a snitch, he came back and killed him. Right. I don't know.
It's a hard sell. Yeah, it's a real hard sell. Let me drop one more data point on you guys, too.
Yes, sir.
There's a man named Blaze Carafello, right? So it's come out. We know now that it was a 630 Cedar Avenue in Long Beach, California. That's where Eric Holder was staying. That's where his apartment was. He had a neighbor. His name was Blaze Carafello. So Blaze Carafello was pistol whipped, as the story goes, by Eric Holder at about 2 p.m. on March 31st. He knocks on Blaze's door, and he just lives across the hall from him. Eric knocks on Blaze's door. Blaze opens the door. What's going on, Eric? First thing that Eric tells him is, you laced the pot that you sold me. He says, you laced the pot that you sold me. So they have this wild interaction, the two of them. Blaze is like, what are you talking about? I got that from the dispensary. You're tripping. And apparently he had sold him some marijuana. It was 3 weeks prior, to the tune of $10. So Eric continues to raise his voice, and you know, just he's pissed. So he winds up smacking Blaze Carafello in the back of the head. Blaze, what the hell? You know, he looks down. Eric drops whatever he had in his hand, and Blaze looks and he sees it was a pistol, because it had wound up hitting his foot. So he rushes back into his apartment and just barricades himself in there. He doesn't call police. He doesn't do anything. He waits until about April 6th, and he up and moves everything. These guys packs, and he goes to Passaic County, New Jersey. Taps in with these two sisters, LL, and I forget the other initials of the other sister, but out of nowhere. So anyways, he make a long story short, Blaze tells the sisters, his story or whatever. Then he's gonna go visit his mother. They wait for him to leave and visit his mother, and as soon as he does this, they run to Harley D. Bright, to my understanding is a pretty high-powered lawyer out that way. It's actually a former like wrestler too. He looks just like a WWE guy, but legitimate lawyer. So Harley D. Bright takes a statement and sends it to Los Angeles County, the DA, and they wind up having to send it back because they need to redact the sisters' names. So anyways, so I'd have taken this story for BS, except for I got a hold of the PDF file of the statement that was given to Los Angeles County from these two sisters. So it's like, whoa, that's a pretty wild story right there. So at 2 p.m., he's alleged to have pistol whipped his neighbor, Blaze Carafello. 2 p.m. This is another thing that's hard to understand, why Blaze Carafello was not called as a witness by Deputy District Attorney John McKinney. If you are trying to paint this picture out of this guy just being crazy, irrational, that's probably a witness you might want to talk to the jury about, is his neighbor who was pistol whipped out of nowhere. That's a significant piece of this story that has been redacted intentionally by Los Angeles County. And so we'd like to know what is that? What's that all about? It's it would not fit into the time frame, because in the grand jury transcripts, and let me give you guys the exact.
Okay.
Eric works with. Okay, so it's in between page 260 and 266, where they kind of tell the whole story in the grand jury transcripts. That'd be volume 2. They say that Brian Eda Nicholson had picked Eric Holder up at 1:30. They were going to go get some In-N-Out, but then they decided against that. Eric wanted to get some Master Burger. So at 1:30, he hops in the car, and from Long Beach, then they start to drive immediately to Los Angeles, to the Marathon clothing store. There's no mention of Blaze Carafello. Apparently a stop would have to be made. You know what I'm saying? But they don't mention this at all. Mm-hmm. From a 2:00 standpoint, for me, logically putting things together, but again, this is just my feelings about it. It would logically make more sense for Eric to have done something and now be looking to place the blame on somebody, and then show up at the neighbor's house like, you laced that pot you gave me, dude. I just did something crazy. Mm-hmm. Then it does just for him to pop up out of the blue, pistol whip his neighbor, and then go to the Marathon clothing store and do what he does. Like, dude, there's just some stuff of this. Like, we need answers for these. Like, what is going on with these people, with these stories, with these circumstances? And the cloud just does not get any clearer, for, again, trying to dispel these conspiracy theories. It just adds to it.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
What do you see happening? Like we were saying a few minutes ago, the verdict, was due to come in tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe Friday, who knows? But what do you see happening? And are you buying the whole thing that the defense is trying to, feed everybody, that it was done out of passion, the heat of passion?
I don't buy the heat of passion. 9 minutes to cool down. Right. I just don't. There's, it's plausible. The heat of it. They did a pretty good job. McKinney did a breaking down that heat of passion. And the references that he used. It's like, okay, I could see that. Mom comes in, somebody's doing whatever. with one of the babies. She, flips, gets the guy up out of here. It's like heat of passion. Okay. This one though, like, I don't know, but then it kind of, that's the color of law. So that's really up to the jury to decide, what color of the law they want to paint that in. I see it. It's going to be a they've admitted guilt already, so either way for me, whether or not Eric Holder is not the guy that I'm so much interested in at this point in time. I listen to Sammy the Bull talk sometimes, and he's like, talks about the conspirators, what I'm saying, versus Trigger Man. And oftentimes in cases, it's a conspirator that gets booked a little bit more than the Trigger Man.
Yeah.
And at this point, I just feel like there's something greater at hand here. Something else is greater. But what that is, that's the mystery. So I don't feel like justice is going to be served by Eric Holder simply getting a guilty plea. I feel like this is a good old sweeping under the rug, and let's hope this thing just goes away. But it's up to us. This is what I've tried to advocate on behalf of this, I don't know, mantra or whatever. But I said, like, I never felt like we were going to get justice from Los Angeles County. Mm-hmm. And if we were going to get justice from Los Angeles County, then it was going to be up to us, the people. We were going to have to really come out in droves and like say, hey, we're not jacking this that you guys are giving us. We were going to have to hold them accountable in the court of public opinion. A lot of light was going to have to be shined on this, and there was going to have to be massive numbers of us. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. It's been like a moratorium on truth and information, really going out with this case. So, that's how I feel about that. I don't, there will be no closure for me by a simple guilty conviction for Eric Holder.
How do you feel about the family not showing up in court?
It's hard to speak on that. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine. I went through like a real deal depression for the first time in my life. I never experienced depression before. When Nip was taken from us, I literally went through a depression for my first time. And that was some difficult stuff to deal with. I never experienced that before. And so I can only imagine, what happened to me after they took bro. I can only imagine how they feel and reliving all that trauma. They're playing those videos. Mm-hmm. That's tough. That I would imagine that they're still grieving. I would imagine, and so I can't fault it against them. So there's that way to look at it, and then there's the tinfoil hat way. Too is like, well, they know that this is bullshit, so why would they go up there? Oh, excuse me, can we guys curse on here?
Yeah, bro. You
Sorry, my bad.
Uncensored, brother. Do you think?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, right, for sure. Yeah. So they say it's, speculating like, we know this is bullshit. We know what happened is not what you guys are saying, so we're not gonna go participate in this charade. There's that way to look at it as well, and I don't know what the truth is. We'll have to wait till one day, either Black or, what I'm saying, one of the family comes out and speaks, hopefully one day. But
yeah, I kind of thought real quick, I thought that maybe they just didn't want to show up so they wouldn't be like the center of attention. Like if Lauren London was there, Black Sam, and it would kind of maybe take away from what was going on. I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. People want to interview them and putting the cameras on them. They kind of just want justice to be served for them, without them being in the way. But I don't know.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely possible. That's one way to look at it for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely appreciate your time, man, and on all the information and the work that you continue to put in. And you definitely raised our eyebrows to a couple points that weren't, you know what I mean? And you got me looking at the Harley D. Bright, the attorney out of New Jersey. Because he needed to be spoken to with his information to see. Not that he's involved in anything, but there was a piece that came to him, and he's a lawyer, so I'm not, you know what I mean? Little things that you brought up that definitely raise eyebrows. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate your work you're putting in. Continue to do so, brother. Before we get up out of here, you got any more questions, guys?
I'm good. Yeah.
Before we get up out of here, man, let the people know where they can find you, the YouTube platforms where they can follow your information, brother. We definitely appreciate it. The floor is yours.
I appreciate you guys so much, man. Again, respectfully, y'all don't know how important the work that you've done has been. I prepared like a little package I'm gonna send over to you guys with like important names in case you guys want to reach out, try to do some additional interviews. I got the shortcut for you guys, so I'll send that over after we get done here. You can find me at Blaxon the Greats Oddcast on YouTube, or you can find me at justice_4_Nipsey on Instagram, and that's where I'll be if you want or need, or you looking to find some additional information, resources, or where to go to. If you have any questions, I might not have an answer, but I probably do have some data that would help you get there. So, we love Nip. We miss him. I'm saying long live Nip Hussle the Great. The marathon continues. Thank you, brother, so much for your time.
Definitely, man. Thank you once again. And yeah, the platform is always open, man. The verdict happens or whatever, you want to come through and share some more information. Pops, let us know. We can bring you right back on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm always available. Just reach out if you guys need anything as it pertains to this or
yes, sir.
Anything at all. Open door.
Yes, sir.
Keep doing your thing, brother. Stay positive. Stay up, brother. Blaxon the Great on the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast.